About 2 years ago marked the end of Star Wars A Galaxy Divided. At least that's the last time that we saw an update on that mod. But around the same time, maybe a little bit before, the first images of something new came out. Star Wars Fallen Republic, which is, well, one could almost say a spiritual successor if it wasn't a complete and total fresh project made by a fresh team, fresh people, as well as fresh models. That's right, Star Wars is back in Stellaris, and wow, it is quite a doozy, because this is... It's really good. Let's put it that way. It's oh boy. Let's dive in, shall we? One thing that is important to note here that this is a beta version of the mod. When it comes out, it's completely up in the air still. However, I have been given the, well, blessing of the dev team to do a bit of a showcase of this particular mod to show you what is possible. Let's dive right in here with a new game and show you what can be done here. What is very important, however, to know is that music-wise, there is great music in this, but I can't play it, mainly due to the magnificent world of, the YouTube algorithm shutting that down pretty quickly. Let's take a quick look here at what sort of factions we have. We got, of course, the Galactic Empire. This particular game plays right after the prequel movies, where you will play characters like Darth Vader, etc. So those are all available. This is nothing like the Old Republic or anything like the new Star Wars movies, which this is not totally based on at all. It doesn't take any of that lore. It's very much, oh god, there goes the Death Star. This is all based around the classic lore, like the books, etc. And also, as well as a little bit of Old Republic thrown in there through events, but we'll dive into that later on. Of course, we've got the Galactic Empire, we've got some authority here, we got the Republic Loyalists, etc., etc. Mon Calamari, but also a couple of more interesting ones, like the Trade Federation. Yes, that is still here. They come with their own ship designs. They got Scow ships, which is basically the same as the rebellion, not the rebellion, about the separatists. Yeah, they get droids and all that stuff. But there's also the Hutts, for instance, and a couple of more interesting ones like the Chiss Ascendancy, which is very much one from the books, and they come with their own ships as well. They're not as well designed, or at least up to date, as some of the Empire or Rebellion ships, but I hear that they are going to get themselves a new pass, so they're going to be a little bit more awesome once this comes out. But yeah, there is a ton of factions to be played here for your enjoyment. Now, the thing with Star Wars games in general is that usually it's like, oh yeah, you jump into a TIE fighter or an X-Wing and start shooting, and nothing really along the lines of the grander scale of things, of managing the empires and moving them to directions that you want. For instance, if you are playing as the Empire, which you probably should if you're playing on your first playthrough, because, well, it is objectively one of the easiest factions to play with, is that you can play as a benevolent dictatorship where everybody gets the resources that they need. But you can also play with the autocracy of the Empire and go hashtag Empire did nothing wrong and crush everything underneath your boots. Yeah, you can totally do that, but you can do multiple angles, which is really cool. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do there. And of course, there's a lot of different types of empires also given here. For instance, you can even have some megacorp empires or ones that are on asteroids, etc. There is quite a lot of stuff to be had here. Let's dive quickly here in as the Galactic Empire and showcase some of the basic mechanics here, because they also get, of course, their own little mechanics, as well as ethics and edicts and stuff like that. Let's dive right in. We got our galaxy setup. What is important to note here is that we can play as a sandbox, which is basically a free play where you start from nothing, and of course you can play as the canon galaxy in various sizes as well. The official one is the canon large galaxy with 45 plus empires, hundreds if not thousands of planets to play around with, and etc. So let's do this. Let's dive in with the canon large galaxy and see what it looks like. And of course we got these awesome loading screens as well. I would like to remind you that all the models are pretty darn awesome. Welcome to the start of the game here. As you can see, we already have a lot of planets being ready to be rolled out. Now, what is important to know here once we start the game as the Galactic Empire, in this particular case, is that we will have a couple of tiny menus we need to jump through. As in, do we want to start as a united empire, where we will have a new Galactic Republic with a bunch of empires. Basically, it's very similar to the Federation system, or a fractured empire where everybody fights on their own. And this is rather important. If you're a new player, I highly recommend to start with a united empire, because not only will you get a cool little intro, which I cannot show you due to copyright reasons, and we will just get to that. And on top of that, we've got the Star Wars habitability system. Now, what is very important to know here, as you can see here, these are all of our planets that we have on the side here. If we go with none of the standard habitable planets, it means that we will have a bunch of systems. Now, as you can see here, most of these planets are, in fact, colonized to a certain degree. However, if we hit the all habitable planets, we will be flooded by hundreds upon hundreds of planets. I will show you right here. We'll unpause this, and you will see very shortly, because all the events need to trigger in the background here. Oh, there's the event I need to skip through. Now, as you can see, we have no sectors at the start here. I have reached out to the developers to actually set up some sectors right at the beginning, because it is kind of important that we have those set up at the start of the game, because, well, as you can see, we have a lot of planets, and it is usually a good idea to make sure that the sectors you don't want to deal with have their own little AI set up for them. The thing is that if we jump into it, you will see that we have a lot of different building slots available on our planets. And this has to do with the fact that we have a ton of different new resources, like ammunition production, droid assembly plasmids we already had the bases of before, but also things like ion weapon production, laser weapon production, starfighter production, etc. Now, unlike the standard Stellaris base game, sometimes with these buildings, you can't have more of them on one planet. A good example here would be the wonders of the administrative office. In the base game, you can have as many administrative offices as you want. However, in this mod, this total conversion mod, that is not the case. So please be aware of that. Something else that may surprise you is the sheer amount of resources that is available at the top of the screen. I've also talked to developers about this, because a lot of these things, like, for instance, the laser cells, plasma cells, ordnance, starfighters, could be moved to the strategic resources line, because let's be honest here, you're not going to be looking at too much of these throughout the game. Things like hypermatter, sure, it is important to upkeep your ships, because yes, that's how you upkeep your ships, as well as some of these other modifiers, whilst interesting, are not necessarily important to your standard playthrough. So this may not get towards the actual game. Then we've got a couple of other things, like our human empire population. As you can see here, we start off with 324 because of this map, which is completely pre-built already, so it's not like we start off with nothing. You can play the sandbox and do so, but in this particular case, it is not actually there. Therefore, you have these prefabbed empires. If you've played the Star Trek mod, you will be very familiar with this already. We got a ton of colonizable worlds. We've got basically a whole bunch of planets in sector in this here area, which are all part of sectors, and there's a lot of cluttering going on. For instance, if we go to the Corellian security, there's going to be a lot of planets in this particular area that you want to watch out for, especially on some of these larger maps. So please do be aware of that. Then we have technology. Of course, technology has completely been overhauled. We've got new weapon systems. We've got new modules for on our ships, as well as nice new modifiers. A lot of this stuff is also moved over from the base game, but overall, it's relatively straightforward on what things do. Now, considering we are playing as a Star Wars mod over here, it does mean that we have got classic Star Wars worlds, like Kuat, for instance, which comes, of course, with its ring, and you can build more of these if you want to. A lot of Ecumenopoly will start off at the start of the game as well. You have almost endless resources at the start of the game that you can, in fact, move through. They'll all have their own little, modifiers that you can mess around with. This one's bleak, for instance. However, if we go to Kuat, for instance, and we then look at our planetary modifiers or features, you'll see that we've got Rakatan Ruins. For those of you who've played Star Wars The Old Republic, you will be very familiar with this. Maybe some of the later books as well. But if we go, for instance, to Coruscant and we look at our planetary features, there's the Underworld, Queen of the Core, and this will give, all of these will give us unique little modifiers for us to work with. Also, we have the Ruined Jedi Temple, which lowers stability, but later on in the game we get the option to remove all of this stuff. Now, speaking of interesting stuff here, we got districts. Now, districts have been overhauled for this particular mod in all sorts of fascinating little ways. For instance, we got the Metropolitan District here on our Ecumenopolis, in this case Coruscant, where we get trade value from clerks. Then we have the Financial District, where classically in the base game we would get our Alloy District. That no longer exists as a base feature here anymore. We got our Financial District here instead that generates us energy credits instead of trade value. Heavy Industry Districts generates consumer goods, and then the Environmental Districts, which generates food. However, if we get into the game later on, I have a save file ready as well, we have the opportunity to generate brand new districts there through decisions, but once we get to that particular save file, we'll dive a little bit more into that. Now, one thing that is important here is that we've got quite a lot of stuff going on the map already, with a lot of politics already going on. For instance, these guys want to have a research agreement with us, which we definitely want to do. But considering we have so many planets and so many building slots, as well as so much income, we always have the opportunity just to blow most of our income on ginormous amounts of research labs. You won't run into any Empire sprawl issues because of the wonders of the, let's take a quick look here. Does Coruscant have one already? Yeah, well, the administrative offices, which will give us bureaucrat jobs, which of course increases admin cap by 20, which means that admin cap is never going to be a problem. In addition, we have all of these planets that we can colonize right off the get-go. Do you want to colonize this planet over here? Yeah, you can do that. Look at that. High quality minerals, perfect mining world right here, ready for alloy production. Another continental world here. Oh my god, it's got Titanic life. Yes, a bunch of the classic Stellaris events are in the game, on top of the ones that come with this here total conversion mod. Yes, quite a lot of stuff comes in. We got a schism in the Empire right off the get-go, which means that, for instance, the Corellian security will no longer be with us. However, if we go to our alliance here, which is the Galactic Empire, which is a brand new design for this particular mod, type of federation, which basically is kind of like the hegemony, where nobody can leave unless you tell them to. However, there are still laws in place here, but over time you can of course adjust all of this stuff and make sure that you are in fact the wonders of the, well, the Senate. Yeah, you can become the Senate. Not so much about the Empire itself, but also of the galaxy through the Galactic Council. So that's something that we want to do more stuff with. Migration treaties, all that stuff is still there. In the start of the game, you're going to end up with a lot of these little trades things, and you want to make sure that you've got enough envoys assigned towards your alliance as well. Let's take a quick look here at our policies, for instance. What do we have here? We got a wonderful new thing called Tales of the Cantina, which is a way for us to get new things like archaeology sites, a brand new system here. Also medical treatment systems. We can have it based on Bacta or Spice. Of course, in the start of the game, you don't really want to touch all of this stuff because, well, let's put it this way, it's not something that you want to deal with. And yeah, that is effectively it when it comes to some of the nitty and gritty. Traditions have been overhauled, although even though they've got a lot of brand new art, a lot of this stuff is very similar, except for Moth Council for the Empire, which is a unique one here, means that you can get special modifiers. For instance, we can now, with the Moth Council, we can get the unique special Imperial Sector vassals, which is really cool, which means that we can basically say, hey, Corellian security, you're now going to be part of the Empire through this vassal system. It's very similar to the hegemony system in the base game. Then, of course, we got our fleets. Of course, the Empire starts out with the post Civil War fleets. We got our Venator class here, very classy stuff, of course. We can take a look at this. We've got a lot of different components here. This is very much inspired by the Star Trek mod, and there is so many weapon systems here on these ships. So we can quickly mosey over towards this Venator class and see what it looks like. These models are absolutely exquisite, but we can always build more of them, and this is where the problem lies with a lot of these ships, and that is that they need to be built in these orbital shipyards. And we can take a look at them, of course. They look a little bit like this, and they're just hovering around planets, and they're a mega structure that you can build. But for instance, if we want to build a CR-90, it costs us 189 alloys, and we only have an income of 41. And let's say that we want to build a Venator class. Well, it will already cost us 2,400 alloys at the start of the game, and it's a major investment. And as the technology keeps on unlocking, well, let's put it this way, those Super Star Destroyers ain't exactly cheap. And that's something you want to keep in mind. If we could take a look here at our ship designs, we got our classic CR-90s, some classic designs here, escort cruisers, early heavy cruisers, some assault ships, etc. And they all have these giant amount of weapons on them, early Star Destroyers, etc. One of the big problems that I find with the mod is that a lot of these ship designs will stay in your optional building slots, which is rather annoying if you're playing around with Super Star Destroyers later on in the game, and you can still build CR-90s to man your fleet, even though they're being completely outmatched by even the most basic of your corvettes, and we will dive into that a little bit more shortly. But yeah, the map itself is absolutely exquisite. We got all of these systems that look incredibly good. Sure, the UI is a little bit cluttered, but yeah, the systems themselves look incredibly good. They really have that real space feel to them. Of course, you can play as all of these factions, even the ones that are out here in the hidden regions out here. The Chiss are hanging out in this area, and you can of course send out your science ships all the way over there, but do be aware there is pirates afoot, and these areas will be most likely be off limits until the mid to late game, because you won't be able to take on any of them. The Mandalorians, of course, they've got their own ship designs. They look incredibly cool, and of course the Republic loyalists as well. Let's dive forward a little bit into a couple of years later, because there's a couple of features here that I do want to touch upon, as well as look at some of these other ship designs, as well as the mid-game political system, because yes, there's quite a lot of that stuff. And then we also dip into Tales from the Cantina. So we've jumped into a save file that has a little bit more going on, and in all honesty, yeah, there is quite a lot of stuff going on here. Welcome to the year of 8036. I guess that's after the Great Hyperspace War, but BBY hasn't happened yet because, well, the Rebel Alliance are incompetent, and instead of blowing up Alderaan, if I can actually find it, because it is a bit of a maze of planets up in here. There it is, Alderaan. Instead of blowing it up with my defense station DS1 over here, I've actually captured it because, well, let's put it this way, the Empire doesn't need to destroy anything at the moment. But still, we still have quite a lot of stuff going on here, and of course, we've got our magnificent military fleet here, which is having a little bit of trouble to load because, well, let's put it this way, this Imperial Super Star Destroyer takes up a reasonable amount of space. Now, I was talking about the older models still being in the game, even though you shouldn't be able to build them anymore because the Venator class is, in fact, over here. And if we go into our ship designer, we have all of our early corvettes still, but also some of the more advanced stuff that we would want to play with, except, well, let's put it this way, the older stuff is still there, including these beautiful Nebulon B frigates, which you may have noticed, may have seen before in the Return of the Jedi. But yeah, we've got all of these ship designs, missile cruisers, other advanced cruisers like this Gladiator, this Immobilizer, which is quite frankly one of my favorite ship designs in all of Star Wars, and was canonized recently, which is something that I'm very, very happy about. Victory 1s, Vindicator class Star Destroyers, Victory 2s, the Venator, of course, which is, of course, a little bit smaller. And then, of course, we start to get into the classic Death Doritos over here, or Peace Doritos, depending on how, of course, you play your Empire. Pocket Star Destroyers, Imperial 2s, Escort Destroyers. The bigger ones, like the Interdictor Star Destroyer, the Allegiance class, which is more of a battle cruiser. It's larger than the Imperial 2. The thing about this is that it really gives the feel of the fact that you've got all of this power. This ship will cost you 14,000 alloys, but as you can see, my alloy production is through the roof right now because of all the planets that we have. And we got all of these modules on top of it. Then we have the Titan class Dreadnought, as well as the Heavy Dreadnought, which is this here Bellator class, and of course, finally, the Super Star Destroyer Executor class, which has all of these guns on it. But of course, an Executor, whilst strong, is not going to be powerful enough to go into a fight by itself, because in the end, the enemy will focus all their fire on that there Superstar Destroyer, and you will lose your 40,000 alloy ship. So yeah, do be aware of that. There is quite a lot of cost in building all of these. But still, there's more to be had here. We'll go back towards those very soon. And that is, of course, the tradition system. As you can see, we have got quite a lot of new ascension perks to our stuff. For instance, weapon production being increased. Now, overall, none of these seem to be super powerful. They don't really feel like they've got overwhelming power to them, like megastructures or anything like that you would get in the base game. But all of these do add a brand new flavor to your game. For instance, leader experience game. Would you ever take it? No. But however, Imperial Powerhouse, alloys plus 15% from jobs, whilst you could normally get from an edict in the base game, is now a ascension perk. So you're going to need to focus quite a lot of all of these things. Mining guilds, which was normally a edict, has been moved into era perks, etc, etc, etc. But also genetic modification is here. And on top of that, something called institutional focus, which unlocks a brand new system called institutions. Now, institutions is something that I've talked about in the past that I would really like in the game, and it is here now in some way or flavor, because let's put it this way. They put it in. It's not necessarily how I would have done it, but it's still here, and it's done through this institution screen. And basically what this does is that you can spend a certain amount of resources over time on cool things. Like, for instance, a institution like the Empire Day Celebration, instead of course, the Life Day Celebration. What it does is it increases planet stability by 10% and unity production by 10% for 1 year. 1 whole year. Isn't that exciting? Imperial Seizure, which basically means that any target Empire ship build speed will be reduced and increases their ship build cost, whilst of course increasing your own, because you're seizing the other empire's resource production. Imperial Research as well, where you can get increased research, or you can just gain influence. In this case, the Empire Celebration Day is so important because glory to the Empire, hashtag Empire did nothing wrong. Something we always want to keep in the back of our heads. Now, the thing here is that this particular mod does lean incredibly heavily on the old lore, the non-canon lore. And that kind of translates into the following. There's a couple of relics here that you may be interested in. For instance, holocrons, which you can find, but also the Isotope 5 reactor. Where is it from? I don't know, but it's probably from the old canon. The Empress Tita's crown jewels. I don't know where it's from, but I'm sure it's from the old canon. Hammer Station, which is definitely from the old canon. It's not done just yet. There's a bunch of modifiers that need to be added here. But what it does is you can destroy a planet somewhere else, which is super powerful. You can just find it floating around in space, or through these little events called cantinas, or at least stories from cantinas. And these are little events that pop up every 3 years. With a bit of luck, we will find ourselves one of them very soon. But what it does is basically it gives you a little quest, a little event, which can unlock a archaeology site or free resources. I do feel that it needs to be embellished a little bit more because it doesn't really feel like a wild goose chase just yet. But it's still early days for this mod, so for all of that, there can be, you know, more stuff to be on the horizon. However, there is also the joys of, say, I don't know, if we quickly go into our relic system here, the Secrets of the Qua, or the Secrets of the Celestials, or the the secrets of the Zepho and the Rakaton. Yes, all that stuff is here. What does that translate to? Well, it translates to hypergates, which for some reason I can build now. This is all old canon, and yes, I have now hypergates in my empire because my superstar destroyers are a little bit slow, so making sure that they can move around space relatively quickly is rather nice. And as you can see, oh my god, there's so many planets here. But yeah, you can adjust all this stuff in these at the start of the game to make sure that you don't have too many planets in your on your screen. Let me quickly go to the sector screen to see what I mean. All of these wonderful places have all of these sectors have planets in them, and it gets a little bit silly in some cases. Like Naboo, for instance, has 3 planets. Fondor has way too many planets. Kuwat has too many planets, and of course Coruscant, which has all the planets. And managing all of those can be a bit of a pain. So making sure that they're in sectors completely automated is rather cool. What else can we do? Well, for instance. Is that the Death Star? Yes, that is the Death Star.
On the way.
We can, for instance, build Cloud City wherever we want. Asteroid bases, the DS-1 orbital battle station, a deep space station, hypergates, planetary shipyards, and of course, a Star Forge, because why shouldn't we be able to build a Star Forge? Let me just quickly remove this here thing and then see if we can actually build one. Yes, there it is. So the Star Forge can be built. Let me just cheat a little bit here. Instant build? Yes, that's the one. So we can very quickly build this here Star Forge if we want to, if it decides to do something. And let's hope the game hasn't crashed, because it does feel like it has done so. Unless, of course, instant build has basically done what I think it does and build a million friggin' things at once. And I don't see the Star Forge just yet, which is a bit of a shame. Apparently I can terraform this star, which is a little bit awkward. Star Forge. Okay, it looks like it's still a little bit broken, but hey, it doesn't really matter because, well, let's put it this way, the mod is not ready yet for general consumption. Let me just turn off instant build whilst we are at it. Combat is relatively straightforward. Upgrades are relatively straightforward as well. Let's take our fleet for a little ride here into this system. If we want to go out there in the part of the galaxy that nobody has explored so far, we're going to need to take care of all of these pirate fleets that are hanging out. So for instance, we got this fleet of 100k sitting around with all of these old CIS ships. It is 101k, but our fleet should be jumping in at a moment's notice, and there are some 5-year plans that we can have because, you know, our empire needs to do that, because otherwise we're going to be in breach of galactic law. And here they come. There's our superstar destroyer, and we're just going to go ahead and attack this fleet. We probably want to add a leader here whilst we are at it. Slow things down because a bunch of cool stuff is about to happen. Oh yeah, the Superstar Destroyer. Yeah, you kind of want to put it in a fleet because it does like to take point. And if it becomes priority, it will die very, very quickly. You will need your support craft. And, well, our support craft are, of course, scaled all properly. We got our Star Destroyers everywhere. There's our Star Dreadnought. But yeah, the Superstar Destroyer, whilst cool, should probably be hanging back in the back line here, because it is not powerful enough to avoid the focus power of an entire fleet. So we're probably going to need to jump out this bad boy. And as you can see, we got all of these starfighters in classic Star Wars style as well. And here come all of our Corvettes as well. There are all our X-Wings, our TIE Fighters, etc. X-Wings. What am I? Rebel scum? No, we're not going to do any about that. But yeah, we're going to need to jump out this here Superstar Destroyer soon, because otherwise it's going to die, which would be highly, highly unfortunate. What I'm waiting for, however, is the missiles, because yes, missiles are in this game with massive amounts. Let me just slow things down here just so we can get a better idea of what's going on. Ah, yes, the Superstar Destroyer is eating most of the fire from this here fleet. But as you can see, overall, the visuals are absolutely astounding. There we go, the Superstar Destroyer just jumped out. But in the meantime, though, we got all of this other stuff going on. There's our Allegiance. Oh, no, it's a Titan class. That's our Allegiance, yeah. And all of these smaller battleships and Imperial Victory 1s, and I believe the Imperial 2s are hanging out back here. Yeah, so they're all about that long-range stuff. But in the meantime, though, overall, the combat looks incredibly good. And it does feel good. And I think that one is really important. Something to nail in one of these mods. So yeah, let's leave this fight for what it is and take a look at what other things we have here. We still haven't seen a thing from the cantina just yet. I did want to illustrate this properly, but sadly we haven't had the opportunities for it. But yeah, so many planets to be had here. Maybe we can just finish things off here by using the DS1 defensive station here. Where is Alderaan? There you go. Alderaan. There you are. Can we move into Alderaan? No. Well, that's just unfortunate. I really wanted to blow up Alderaan, but sadly, this is not what we can do right now. There is a nice little planet here that we could use it on. Let's just try this one out. See what we can do whilst we activate a relic. Say this here, Roar Crystal. This is a work in progress, apparently. Let's take a look at our Death Star. I heard that the animation is still a little bit wonky on it. It's a work in progress, but overall, it feels good. And it's sure, the model is smaller than a Superstar Destroyer, but I'm sure that is completely on purpose. Where are you here? Okay. Are you going to do something? How long until you arrive? Let's take a look. I haven't actually seen this one myself, but I did build it, so... Oh, okay. He's off. He's off to the races. Oh, he's back. Okay. Death Star approaching. Aligning. We're charging the weapon. It's not going very fast here, which is a shame. So we can... Ooh, command limit. But yeah, we got all this stuff here. Ship designer, like I said, all this stuff is incredibly cool. It's super easy to get gigantic amounts of research due to the sheer amount of resources that we have available. So yeah, don't be too worried about that. Star Wars, the mod at least, is going to be available soon. When, I do not know, but this has been an interesting showcase so far anyway, and it looks like the fight has been won by the Imperial fleet, which is rather cool, of course. Let's take a look at what the Death Star is doing. Death Star approaching. Tell you what, we'll just fast forward until we blow up that planet. As I mentioned, the Death Star animation is still a little bit wonky, but I'm sure it will be ready to go, at least look good when the mod finally launches. We have been waiting for 2 years on this, so now would be, oh god, did I just deactivate it? Yes, I did. Well, that's unfortunate. Anyway, the Death Star decides to go on a journey of its own, but still, this mod by itself has incredible promise. It looks like everything you'd ever want from a large-scale Star Wars simulation-style game. Do you want to be the benevolent empire? You can be. Do you want to be that oppressive empire? You can be. Do you want to build whatever you want? Yeah, you can. Anything in the Star Wars lore is basically doable. Do you want to build a criminal empire? Yeah, you totally can do that. That's totally doable. Oh, let's take a quick chat here with the Hutts. Yeah, they are a criminal cartel. That's totally a thing. You can play as the Rebellion. You can play as the Mandalorians. They have their own ship designs. They look pretty cool. The Intergalactic Banking Cartel or Clan, even. Well, that's there. But yeah, and all of this other stuff that's outside in the hidden regions as well. So yeah, all of this stuff and more. I would not be surprised if this particular mod will be similar to the Star Trek mod with years and years and years of support and, of course, being able to do all of these cool seasons with new events being added slowly over time. Oh, and look, Darth Nihilus is here as well, so there's your KOTOR 2 reference. Anyway, we're going to go wrap up this video. Star Wars, the mod, is going to be out sometime in the near future. When is it going to be out? I do not know. Fallen Republic is one of those mods that's highly sought after and people have been looking forward to for a long time. You'll just have to wait a little bit longer, as this is just a showcase of what is to come. Again, this is a press version of the mod. Not everything is there yet, not everything is done yet, but who knows what is coming up in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or a subscribe. And if you're one of my patrons, thank you so much for making this video possible. In the meantime, though, if you have any other things that you want to look at on the channel, here are some videos. I've curated them just for you. I do like the advanced tips video. Feel free to go and check that one out. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves and, as always, each other.